Thanks, guys. Look what you did to me. My economy's falling
Goddamn.
apart.
My bad.
All right,
Is that because you unbanned Darkwood?
Yeah, it's honestly probably what it was. Yeah, starting. Let me do some. I'd probably put you guys in the title or something. What are your names? Got Monte, Sqweeby, and eMOEtional.
Yeah.
That's who it is. Featuring Shannon Riley. I don't think that's correct.
Was that supposed to be me?
Yeah.
Soon.
I typed in SHA and apparently it's Shannon Riley.
My name is Evil Snowflake.
Evil Snow. You are not. I know who Evil Snowflake is, and
I do too.
you do. Yeah, that's funny. They told me that. They're like, "Oh, I knew about you like years ago," and I was like, "No, you didn't." And they're like, "Yeah, look, I left a comment on one of your videos," and I just died laughing.
The only reason I had like a good idea on who it was just because of the way they type.
Yeah, you can just hear it. You can hear it being typed out of their voice. Oh man. All right, so I don't know what to do for a fucking intro. I guess we just start talking, right? That's how these things work.
Yeah.
I'm paying you guys for 1 hour of talking.
Theoretical.
Amazing. I love talking.
All right. Well, my name is Mo, and I'm an alcoholic. And with me are 3 other alcoholics.
Should I be drinking right now? Is it that
Probably
kind of
not.
podcast?
Of course. I mean, is it not past 11 a.m.?
Yes.
It is.
All right, there you
It
go.
is.
All right, you guys introduce yourselves and what you do in the whatever the fuck LoR community. Yeah.
I guess I'm Monte, and I try to play this video game well, not super successfully, but I do my best.
My name's Darkodius. I tweet a bunch of shitposts, and I obsessively one-trick decks to higher LP values that don't translate to tournament success. Also, people keep talking about me playing a deck that's been dead for 3 patches, and I still miss it.
True.
Hey, Darkodius, have you ever gone 7-2 in seasonals?
No.
Oh. Well, that was just depressing. That was a depressing.
I know.
That was the saddest no I've ever heard. All right,
Yeah.
Shadawx, introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, I'm Shadawx.
What's it? Not Mr. Didn't you just win a tournament?
I do stuff. Yeah, I'm okay at the game.
Kind of good.
All right.
Just a little good. I've gotten 7-2 at seasonals.
So have I.
I actually have never gone 7-2 a season. Unfortunately,
just like me,
I'm
Mo.
not as good as you guys.
Yeah.
But
Only
I-
what? 8-1?
wait.
What?
Mo,
9-0?
I know,
Mo, have you ever won a fight night?
No, I don't think so actually.
Aha, I'm the only person here who's won a fight night.
You have. That's pretty good. I've gotten second.
Yeah, that's really good. Congrats.
I've gotten second multiple times, but never good enough to win. That's not me. I'm not that good.
Yeah,
That's my one
and for
accomplishment.
those of you who don't know, Darkodius did it while looking very good. It was business
baby.
mode, you know.
He did look quite spiffy that night.
Yeah, we'll put a picture up on the screen of what Darkodius looked like, assuming I have a picture of Darkodius somewhere.
And don't put up a picture of it like the next week. That costume was a bad decision.
The picture is just gonna be the one of you like asleep at whoever's party that was. Of you just drunk and asleep.
That's a good picture.
That was a good time. It was a good time. But
What do you mean it was a good time? You weren't there.
no, I mean like all the comments was a good fucking time.
Oh,
Like
no, it was
reading
a
all
good
the
tweet.
comments was hilarious. That was a fun 30 minutes of my stream career. But all right, so let's get to the first topic here that I'm not making up on the spot, which is, we have some tournament players here. Like you guys said, you just won a fight night, like real recently. I think it was like last week, right? Or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And
the last one that came third, the one before that won.
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago.
okay,
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, and Shoddy just won a tournament like 3 weeks ago or so. Yeah, Monte won a Riot Grand Prix.
I did.
Again,
Somehow.
not too long ago. So let's talk about some tournament meta here. What could fix it, I guess? Or do you think that there's a problem with it? Because I've seen a lot of people on Twitter basically saying if you don't play Ahri Kennen, if you're not playing like Ahri Kennen XX, you're just like griefing away your tournament run. Like, what are?
I think that's.
Mm-hmm.
I was just gonna say, I think that's an incredibly bad take. I think the tournament is great right now.
You play Ahri Kennen, Darkodius.
But like even outside of that, like if you look at the top 4 of MR, you'll see what, like 2 Ahri Kennen lineups.
But remember, our MR is single elim, so brackets can just fall a certain way.
Yeah, no offense, that
But
tournament's doesn't count.
Yeah, okay, but if you look at the OLS, there weren't a lot of Ahri Kennens in top 8, like in the lineups.
Did one win though?
I think. I'm not sure.
I don't either. We'll pull it up. You keep talking. I'll be the stat guy.
Because I think tier 0 decks that like make ladder metas feel stale are always solid for tournament metas, because you can build lineups that like want to ban that, and you can build lineups that prey on the lineups that want to ban that, and you like have interesting ways of and permutations of those lineups, and you have to think about. And sure, one deck warps kind of lineups around it, but the way it works is that it's sometimes hard to build a lineup around that one deck unless you want to play a lot of mirrors. I think like the tournament lineup meta right now is fine. There's so much diversity. There's a lot of different types of lineups you could play.
That's true.
I think there's a lot of different lineups you can play. Of course, I've not played in a tournament lately. I've kind of just been watching and theory crafting, so I can't really say of how anything's gone for me personally. But it kind of looks like if you were to just show up to a tournament with like Ahri Kennen and then Demacia deck number 1 and Demacia deck number 2, you just win the tournament.
I think so.
It depends what Demacia decks, right?
I mean,
as
long as you have Rally, I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
Like, because any lineup you come up with outside of that is either going to be one, an extremely polarized lineup that you're basically just flipping a coin on if you do well in the tournament, or it's one of the other like really solid lineups that just so happens to lose to Demacia. Like, because every lineup right now, or every top tier deck, either loses to Demacia or only beats Demacia and then loses to everything else.
Well, I think it depends, because I think you can really split Demacia into 2 right now, and that being Scouts and every other Demacia deck, because those matchup tables are actually very different.
Right. I guess I wasn't really counting Scouts. I put Scouts in the like super polarized matchup. I would say more like you play like Auction Sivir, and then you would play like Pantheon something else. Like basically something that's just good mid-range units that plays 3 rallies. And
I think Jace Lux is actually good.
Sure.
I like it better than Auction Sivir, to be honest. I tried Auction Sivir, it didn't feel that good. Like I had to work really hard, and like I played that kind of style of deck before. I don't know. But I agree that the 3 rallies is super good.
And of course, like I said, not really much like actual hands-on experience lately, so I'm just theory crafting here. But that's just what it looks like to me.
I think you can build lineups that like prey on Demacia decks that aren't like awful by themselves. And those unfortunately, those lineups that prey on Demacia decks are gonna run Ahri Kennen, just because Ahri Kennen has great matchups into the bigger Demacia decks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you just ban Ahri Kennen every time as the Demacia decks, right?
Sure,
right, but you still have the other 2
like,
decks, right?
Yeah.
To worry about.
Yeah.
Like
I think
you can
there's
bring, like 2 aggro decks and just go under Pants.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some lineups that can be made that beat the Demacia style decks and also don't lose to everything. But I feel like there's going to be a couple of things wrong with that. Is one, it would take a shit ton of like testing and practice to actually find it. And 2, you have to ask yourself at the end of the day, because these decks probably aren't going to be tier 1 decks, probably not even high tier 2 decks. So the question it comes down to, and it's like this at every tournament any tournament player plays in, is will this tier 3 or low tier 2 deck be consistent enough for me that it makes it worth just not running whatever tier 1 decks like Ahri Kennen, Rally or whatever.
So if we look at again, I know you don't like MR because it was single limb, but I do want to point it out because I think Italian X's lineup fits exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
He had like Xerath, Zillion, and Malphite Talia exactly for that reason, because they beat the crap out of bigger Demacia decks.
Yep.
I don't even know if that's true, actually.
Yeah.
Not that. Let me look up, because I actually did a meta report, and it's either true, but that's all they beat, or it's not really true and it's not what they beat. On Runeterra AR, the last 7 days, because I actually looked over this, Xerath Zillion has a 45% win rate, and I remember it only beat like 2 things.
You can't trust ladder stats on that one.
Yeah, I think that deck is horrible, by the way. I think that deck is like dog shit.
I think it's pretty good. I'm putting out a guide on it like tomorrow. So I think it's solid.
The deck is medium but polarized. Like there's just some matchups you have with it where it'll murder. Like again, smaller Demacia, like Demacia, all Demacia, because it kills both Demacia and Scouts. Like it just destroys them. Like this is a very polarized lineup, and he obviously hit good matchups, but like it's still, that's what he went 7-0, right?
Yeah. So I pulled up the stats for the deck, and this is what I was looking at when I was talking at. So into Pantheon Shyvana, the deck has a 30% win rate. Into Pantheon Taric, the deck has a 31% win rate.
Oh, okay. What about into Sivir Action?
Into Sivir Auction. Oh, it's actually not listed on here. I'd have to go search that up. Let me see. But yeah, it looked like the only decks that deck actually beat were Ahri Kennen, which I thought was kind of weird. And not by much. It said like 55%, and then it was really, really high in exactly Darkness and Field of Rush. Both of those were 80% matchups. Everything else, it looked like it was about sub 45.
Really? I find that beats Scouts pretty easily. And it beats Ahri Kennen in the same way that like Darkness Control beat Ahri Kennen, in that it really doesn't, what people think it does.
Yeah, and of course you have to take all of this with like a grain of salt, because you're it looks like a 44% matchup into Sivir Auction.
Okay, that's like
it's about
that's
even.
Like
it's
probably around 50-50 because they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Kind of so you also have to take all this stuff with a grain of salt, for those of you that don't know. And it's not necessarily like a top player elitist thing that you're going to hear from a lot of top players, but a lot of them don't trust statistics like this when they're taken off of ladder, because I'd probably say 85% of ladder players don't play optimally, at least like completely optimally. So there are a lot of times where you'll see something in the stats that say like, oh, this matchup is really, really bad. And then you'll watch your favorite streamer play or a top player play in a tournament, and they'll just dominate the matchup or have a really good win rate. Or they'll be preaching to you like, oh, no, trust this. Like, matchup's really good and no one listens to them. And then they go and like dominate anyways. Like, for instance, Sejuani Lee is a really good example. Sejuani into Lee. Sejuani actually had a 72% win rate on ladder, and everyone always thought that Sejuani beat Lee Sin. But then whenever you watched the good Lee Sin players in that seasonal, they actually only dropped 1 game. I think the record for seasonal open for the top players was like 6-1 in that matchup. It was absolutely insane. So you always have to take ladder stats with a grain of salt, knowing that a lot of the play rates on things is going to be oversaturated with people learning decks or playing like bonobos and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say we can go into depth with that, but I don't know if you want to save it for later or not.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, because, yeah, exactly like you said. Like, people are learning decks. People are just net decking and trying out things. People are also, like, changing one card here and there just to try out different things. Like, tech cards are also, like, a big thing, too, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
closed deck lists,
especially when you get into like
closed deck list affects things. So like your one tech card might work out on ladder, but then in the tournament format, it's just like, oh, my judgment ain't working. What the fuck's going on?
Yeah, they're like, oh, I'm playing this like super whack whatever, and they're just like, okay, well, I'm gonna play around that now, and you're just like fucked. Yeah, like I played against someone that was playing Auction Sivir, and I was just like playing into them, not thinking about it. They had 1 mana open. I went to go kill their Sivir, and they chain vested it. And I ended up losing the game because I leveled up their Sivir off of it, and then they just did broken shit. And I was like, oh, well, my bad for not playing around chain vest and like, Sivir
That's
Auction.
just player diff.
Yeah, that guy was just better than me. That person's probably winning Worlds, if I'm being honest with you. So go check out Pussy Slayer 426 over on Twitch, because they're winning the next LoR World Championship.
Like, also, and you kind of said this, but like one trick win percentage boost is a real thing. Like, I'm not even going to talk about myself. Like, for example, Cameron on Thralls will make a 40%.
Well, I mean, we have a perfect example of why like the ladder stats can be so skewed sometimes. The highest win rate card, and this can be kind of like a segue, I guess. The highest win rate card in the game last week was actually Sunk Cost.
Yep.
Fucking eMOEtional.
eMOEtional's a fucking G.
Yeah, so for those of you that are unaware of the situation, basically Ahri Kennen, very good deck, is like 99% Ionia cards, basically all but 2 to 3, usually depending on the variant you're playing. And then people use those 2-card splashes to play, if you're in Demacia, you'll play Rallies. If you're in Shurima, you'll play some Absolvers. If you're in Shadow Isles, you'll play Go Hards. So they use those 2 cards to show any splash. Well, a couple of geniuses over on Twitter were memeing on Riot saying like, oh, it doesn't actually matter what splash you play because this deck's core is so strong. Like the 38 Ionia cards are so fucking strong that you can literally pair anything with it and it wins. So this guy named eMOEtional on Wiggly Wombat, he put Sunk Cost, which I don't know if it had the lowest win rate in the game or not, but it's definitely a jokeable card. If you guys don't know what the card does, I think it's like 8 mana slow speed, shuffle a unit or a landmark into the enemy's deck. And they put that into their Ahri Kennen deck and hit rank 1 with it, hit 1000 LP with it, and single-handedly made Sunk Cost the highest win rate card in the entire game.
Yeah, he did do that.
So that's like a really good example to show you how stats can be super skewed on ladder. Whereas like if something is not played very often, but like when it is played, it's winning because it's played by a very good player or something, it's going to look way more absurd than it is. Same with if you take a really good deck and put it in the hands of not very, well-versed players, they can make that really good deck look really bad. Just because of the total amount of play rate and stuff. But we can use that as a way to talk about Ahri Kennen. How strong, realistically, let's say on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being like peak Aphelios, right? How strong do you guys think this Ahri Kennen deck is?
That's a pretty low 10.
Yeah, I would put like
peak Aphelios?
Like, if I'd say like from 0 to 10, with 10 being the strongest deck in LoR history, I'd say like 10 was like 12-hour Zerorelia or high.
That doesn't count. It's TFIz.
Yeah,
it's TFIz, 12-hour Zerorelia, and I put Aphelios at like tier 9.
I think Aphelios is pretty dumb. I think the only reason people don't think
was really good.
Yeah, I think the only reason you're jaded is because you guys played decks that beat Aphelios. And sorry, by decks I mean literally the only other deck that beat Aphelios.
Oh no, I played Aphelios.
I also played some Aphelios.
I thought you guys played mostly TFIz.
Yeah.
But I think I'm pretty sure those were 2 like tier 0 decks, and it just so happened that sometimes TFIz beats Aphelios. Like the really good TFIz players beat Aphelios, but on the same hand, the really good Aphelios players beat all the TFIz players. Like JT posted a screenshot of him having an 88% win rate of the Aphelios into TFIz matchup, and then Drazzoth immediately responded with a 92% win rate into Aphelios players with TFIz. So it goes both ways of like, if you're good with the deck, it just feels more nuts to you.
Yeah,
okay,
true.
You can say Aphelios is one of like the tier 0 decks, so we can put as 10, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically like tier 0 strongest deck in the game of all time, or just like 0, I guess, being Mono Shurima.
It's up there. I think it's up there.
What would you put it comparable, like if you could compare it to another deck, power level? Like if you would say like, oh, it's old like Heimer Vi, where people like some people say it's tier 0, other people say it was just like a good tier 1 deck. Like can it even be argued to be a tier 0 deck?
I think any more sure that it is a tier 0 deck when in the hands of a very skilled pilot, but I think the average player is not going to be able to take the deck to that level. That being said, I still do think the deck needs to be looked at because like even the average numbers are like above.
Mm-hmm.
It also just feels less frustrating to play against, and it's also less played on ladder compared to other tier 0 decks because it's boring, right?
Right. Well, and it's just been for so long. Like people have played it to where if you look at it, like it's not even the most played deck. I mean, so technically Ahri Kennen is still the most played deck, but that's because there are like 5 different variants going around. So if you add up the play rate of every single Ahri Kennen deck, it's the most played. But there is no one Ahri Kennen deck that's being more played than Scouts in Darkness, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But what were your numbers, Darkodius and Shadawx?
Okay, so on my scale, I think first of all, anything above a 7 on my scale, I think needs a nerf. I think that's like where I hit. We're like above 7s, whatever. The deck, like in terms of power level, what this most reminds me of is that season where like Thresh Nasus was a tier 1 deck. Like that was the best deck in the game. I think that's the power level I mostly associate with it. I think that's like a 9 or like an 8.5. I think like the problem with me calling it a 10 is that like I remember that Droplet used to be at 2, and I can't help but thinking, what would this deck be like if Droplet's still at a 2? And I could be like, oh, that's definitely a 10. As is right now, I think it's like a 9, like an 8.5, because it still has dog crap garbage matchups in the form of like spiders that like feel unwinnable, whereas the other tier 0 decks still had dog crap garbage matchups that they would just high roll consistently. As opposed to Ahri that only high rolls it sometimes.
Yeah, I don't. It's not a tier 0 deck to me.
Yep,
it's just high tier 1.
Yep, I agree.
So
I'd also put it
like 8.5.
8.5, yeah, it's about the ball range I meant. Also, is about 8. I don't even think I would say it a 9. I didn't think 8.5 still being a little generous. I'd probably call it an 8. Maybe I'm jaded because I play against so many bad players, and again, I haven't been in the tournament scene for a minute now, so I haven't really played or grinding top of Masters ladder either. So I haven't played against very many good Ahri Kennen players, but it definitely is no lower than an 8 in my personal opinions. Because obviously, if you can play a deck with 2 dead cards in it and still have 1,000 LP rank 1 Masters, then
my whole thing about this deck is its skill floor is so much lower than all the other tier 0 and tier 1 decks. Like it's so much easier to screw this up than it was. Like you could play TF is like a monkey or Zerelia like a monkey Prime and still crush ladder.
I mean,
you can't really do that with Ahri Kennen as much.
I proved that you can win matchups by doing completely dumb stuff to the point where you had to leave chat because you couldn't stand watching my plays. I still won both those games, and I intentionally misplayed to tilt you.
Dang. Yeah, that's
wow.
I think that's something that a lot of people don't take into account is like some people think or recall things being frustrating just off of like this deck is broken. A lot of times people will call okay decks or good decks broken because of the skill floor and not realize like how actually strong the deck is or isn't, and aggro tends to get that rep. And I think combo decks get the opposite, where sometimes people will think like, oh, this deck is super broken, or think it's not broken because everyone's playing it wrong. Like for instance, Ezreal Kennen, when that deck first came out, like BBG was the only person that really played it well for like the first day, and other than BBG and of course his like cult chat, everyone else was kind of like, oh, this deck's like whatever. And then of course after 24 hours everyone was like, holy shit, this deck is nuts. But people kind of initially looked at this combo deck, tried it, lost with it, and went like, oh, this deck's kind of poo-poo. And then once they actually learned how to play it and got over that initial learning curve, people quickly realized that these combo decks are pretty broken.
I'd like to say I was a day one as Kennen believer, mostly because eMOEtional had theory crafted it like right after the previews came out, and I trusted him to like make something broken. And then I saw BBG playing it, and I was like, "Not yeah, that's it. That's the shit."
Yeah, you guys have some crazy history of like making these stupid. I don't even know if they would be like tier 1 decks, but these decks that kind of induce like heartaches for everybody else playing the game. Like, wasn't it you guys that created the Auction Ahri Infinite deck, or you like theory crafted it like when it first got revealed?
That was Shadawx, yeah.
Shadawx.
That's me. Wait, what? Who is that?
Sqweeby's
Sqweeby. He's Sqweeby.
Yeah. So yeah, no, the Wombats have made some degenerate stuff.
Yeah.
Like again, Shadawx made Infinite, eMOEtional and I made Nami Zoe. We were the first people to play Absolver with Ahri on like somebody on a test account in the preview server who was like in our team played it a lot. We played it with like Aksha on the start, so we didn't play the actual original Kennen Ahri Absolver list, but like close enough.
Yeah, you guys are really good at making decks that look game breaking but end up like not being game breaking. As far as like the Infinite combo deck, how many people like quit ladder for that 24 hours do you think?
A lot of people.
A lot of people. Like as soon as Swim streamed it, you knew it was over.
People so rage about that deck.
Like as soon as Swim like streams a deck or makes a video on a deck, that like that is the meta now for the next 5 hours because everyone just like knee jerks to it.
Yeah, and like fun fact, the only YouTube video I ever made was like a tutorial on it, and Reddit wouldn't let me post it because it's a hostage situation.
That is so funny, man. Dude, LoR Reddit's something else. I used to post my deck guides there because they were like, oh, you like no self-promotion, but if it's like a tutorial or a guide or something, you can post it. And so I used to do that back before, like I'm sure before any of you even knew I existed. And then I was growing and growing and growing, and I posted another deck guide on there somewhat recently, probably about 6 months ago, and they were like, "Oh, at this point, like people know who you are. This is just self-promotion." And I was like, "What? How does that make any sense?" I was like, "You're okay with this?" When I didn't have viewers, but they basically said because I started getting viewers, I was just using this as another outlet to like plug my stuff instead of having the interest of like actually being a deck guide and stuff. And I thought that
Your
was
viewers
hilarious.
have to post it, I guess.
Yeah.
If you don't post it, then it's fine, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Which I also thought was funny because I was like, okay, I'll like, how many people do you think are making like burner accounts just to post their content places?
At least 3.
At least 3 people. He's like, I know 2 right now, brother. Dude, content's crazy. Like,
Bro, there's some wild takes on that Reddit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually spent time to look at it because there was one time I went on it to read the Dovagetti's post, and I just slightly scrolled through it just to be like, oh, I've never like actually looked. Let me look, and I think I got 2 posts in, and I saw something saying that Undying was like broken because it never dies and always comes back and all this other shit, and they're like, yeah, this game's going to shit if they don't nerf Undying, and I was like, yeah. Okay. I was like, it's time for me to get off. I understand why I've never spent time here.
The competitive subreddit is like not so bad. I quite like it there actually. People post some semi-decent stuff, some fun stuff. There's this one guy that posts a Horns of the Dragons list that he uses to make the Masters every season. I live for that shit. Whenever that list drops, I grab it.
He's the same guy who brought Mono Rek'Sai to Seasonals.
I love Horn of the Dragon guy. He's so cool. He's based.
Oh my god.
I love that guy. The competitive subreddit's alright, it can go on. But the main sub is wacky.
There was a meme posted about how like Quinn never levels, and they were like, no, Karma, TF2, and Azir level more than her. And I'm like, Scouts is the single most played deck on ladder right now. Quinn levels every 3rd game.
Bro, MF only, bro. You can't win without MF, man. What are you talking about?
It just made me feel like I was playing a different game from these people.
We are.
Yeah, I actually have a video coming out soon. A little spoiler alert for the people out, the like 10 people that watch my YouTube channel. That I'm putting out a video where I actually go over all the like 1-star reviews of the game on mobile. And I have to tell you guys, some of them are fucking hilarious. And
that sounds awesome.
And you can thanks, man. And you can scroll through the comments because it's all sorted by like date. And you scroll fast enough that you quickly realize like when metas shift. Like I can tell you like about what time something released by how many hate comments there are about it. Like there was, of course, the string of like people hating Azir Aurelia, and I just kept scrolling because I was like, after the 3rd, I hate Azir Aurelia degen shit. It kind of gets not as funny. And there got to a point where I guess it was right when Rising Tides got released. For those of you that don't know, it was like the first official like launch of LoR where they released Bilgewater and all that expansion, and it was when Unyielding Spirit was printed. And there was just like over 12, because I remember I counted 12. There was over 12 comments of just saying this game is dead, nerf Unyielding Spirit. For those of you who don't know, Unyielding Spirit used to be burst speed. So you could at burst speed make your champion unkillable, basically. And I just died laughing because I completely forgot that card existed, yet people were like quitting the game and saying like, oh, this game's trash, get dead game because of this card.
We have Minimorph now. Could that come back? Give Demacia good cards. Let Fiora exist.
No. So there's actually everyone's favorite dev believes that burst speed Unyielding Spirit could come back, and he's actually thought that for a very long time.
I think from a balance perspective, it's fine, but it's just like not fun to play against.
Yeah. I agree with actually that exact statement. I think it'd be balanced. I think it would just be very frustrating. I think that way of a lot of things.
Yeah.
It would bring back in like Fiora and some other archetypes I feel like that are just completely dead. So as much as I hated the card, it might be kind of what it needs to make players who enjoy that play style,
To be honest,
I don't think it would bring back Fiora.
I think
people would play it.
Yeah, I think it would.
People would try though. Yeah.
High tier. Yeah.
I think it would bring back Fiora, and then that would immediately bring back just triple Minimorph in every single deck.
Yeah.
It would make Vandal City better than it already is.
Yeah.
Which maybe is a problem.
Yeah. So I guess in terms of like we're talking about like ladder meta and like tournament meta, because like Vandal's kind of popular in tournament.
Yeah, it's actually I've been camping for a week and a half, so I haven't seen the ladder in the last week and a half. But when I did climb, the only Vandal I saw was Darkness.
Really? That's crazy. I think people kind of overreact to nerfs a lot of the time. Like, for instance, Shellfolk. Maybe I'm kind of crazy here, but I didn't think the Shellfolk change was enough to make it, like, unplayable.
Yeah, that's something I hate about, like, I guess the community, really, is like, if a card is, like, nerfed, they just, like, drop the deck and stop playing it.
Yeah, I feel
like even if it's, like, something small, they'll just stop. Like, Nightfall, for example, right? Like, last season. Or even before, right? Like,
even now.
Just thought it was dead, right?
It has good matchups now, and people are coming into my chat and harassing me. Yeah. And I felt bad. Yeah, bro, let me play a good deck on ladder. Like, I'm hitting Ahri Kennen. That's what I want to hit. It's not Kevor I'm playing against here. Like, I don't have to be worried.
Yeah, I think there's this big hive mind mentality of, like, X person believes something is bad, and it kind of just, like, festers and then spreads, and now everyone thinks, like, or I'd say everyone, but a good majority of people think, like, oh, this thing is bad, until you show them it's, like, not bad or whatever. And it's really funny to me, and that's something that I'm assuming is a result of the LoR community being so small relative to something 100%. Like Magic the Gathering, right? Like, of course, that's a completely different card game. There's never going to have as many tier 1 decks as we do, and just historically they have it. But for instance, if someone says something is bad in Magic, that's not going to make, like, a good majority of the Magic community believe that, because the Magic community is so fucking big that probably the smallest portion of them are actually, like, actively on Twitch and Reddit and stuff like that, like, believing you. So when you have something like BBG or Swim being such a big factor, and Alan say, like, oh, this deck is broken, or this card sucks, people will be like, oh yeah, dude, that card sucks. Well, why does it suck? And there's like, well, I mean, it just sucks. Like, Swim said so.
You know how many people thought Aziralia was completely dead after the 2.11 nerfs, and it still ended up being like a solid tier 1 deck? Like, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I will say one thing specifically about Shellfolk though is the Shellfolk to 4 thing was bad, but I think the bigger hit to that deck was actually Hidden Pathways going to 6. That was what I think actually.
Oh, I completely forgot that card even got changed.
Yeah, that's what actually made the deck a lot worse.
I see. Yeah, I see. I don't even know. I mean, that probably affects it, right? Anytime you up a card, draw a spell, you kind of have to balance the, like, is it worth it, like, type thing.
They don't even play anymore. They play Salvage instead.
Oh my.
They don't play that deck.
Yeah.
Like, you're a deck being forced to play Salvage, that's not a good spot.
That's not very good. Yeah, that's funny. I remember that's I don't know how I feel about LoR's community being able to be so swayed by one person, because it gets to a point to where you have to, like, now I actively challenge. Do you guys do this when you stream? Do you, like, actively challenge people that say shit in your chat that kind of doesn't make sense to you?
Most of the time.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, I like I get people all the time that'll come in and say, like, and it's just about anything, just because I want to see if people start making people, like, think. Like, I was playing, I think I was actually also playing, I was either playing Nightfall or I was playing this, like, burn deck. It was like this championless mono burn deck that the idea was you beat all of the, like, mid-range decks and then just lose to Ahri Kennen or Ahri Lulu or whatever. And this person just came into my chat and was just like, this deck is horrible, like, why are you playing it? And I was like, okay, what about this deck is bad? And their response was just, because it's just bad. And I was just like, okay, man, like, you know, if you can elaborate on why you think it's bad, and I can't tell you, like, why I think it's good, then, you know, we can agree that your assessment is correct here. And then once I started doing that, people just, like, stopped responding, because they would just, like, come in, say some stupid shit like that. I would, like, actively ask them a question, and then they would just either not respond or give, like, a really poor answer, and then not respond after that. And it's really cut back on the amount of toxic people in my chat, which I thought was really funny and really cool. I didn't know if you guys had somewhat similar experiences.
I mean, I'll randomly say dumb stuff in Discord just to see if people, like, just to, like, push a polarized opinion. I think, like, it's worth.
Yeah, there's like a shit stir.
Yeah, whenever I say that like Sign is a garbage card, people should stop running it.
Yeah, and people are just like, oh my god. I love how I used to do that, but I would fuck with people just to see if they would agree with me, just to see like who like forms their own opinions and who doesn't. Where I would say just like the most random shit sometimes. I remember like one time back when Zoe Nami was like really good. I was like, dude, this deck is basically just like Scouts. Like Scouts is just so good right now. And I just had like so many people that were like, yeah, it's just Scouts. Like I made this point, I'm like, yeah, if you don't draw your champion on 3, the deck sucks. You know, this deck does the same thing. Plus you get Stony suppressor. Ooh, Stony. And so many people were like, yeah, true, big if true. And I just like died laughing, man. I was like, dude, Scouts fucking blows. I was like, there's no reason to play Scouts right now. It was something else.
An ongoing debate that people have been having in my chat is like, what is a win more card and what are the win more cards in LOR?
Oh yeah.
People say that a lot, that it's win more. Cards like FTR, I mean, cards like Glorious Evolution, Treasure Trash, just like a bunch of stuff. And I don't think it applies to all that much. So I wanted to ask you guys if you like, what cards do you think are win more in LOR, and what cards aren't, that maybe people commonly think are?
Yeah, that's a really good topic. I actually had someone come to me telling me like, why are you playing Shurima Ahri Kennen? Because like Absolvers just win more card. There's no reason to play, Absolver in this deck. And I actually had a really long think about it. I was like, I don't think Absolvers win more in that deck. I think it's a win condition. And I agree with you. I think that's something people are mistaking the word win condition, like Absolver, with win more. Like
I think Mind Meld is like the most common one where people are like, Mind Meld is a win more card.
Sometimes, like
I think nowadays it is.
In the context of
there's no point.
Of the Nami Shelly deck, like the Nami TF Shelly deck that's basically replaced TF is, Mind Meld is sort of win more in that deck because you can generate off of Flash of Brilliance anyways, and odds are you're gonna have 1 or 2 Shellys down, which effectively do the same thing for less mana.
Yeah, I actually was a victim of this, where I said, oh, this was way back, obviously you guys are familiar with TFIz. I was actually the very last person to put Mind Meld in my TFIz deck. And I told everyone else that they were, being dumb and that Mind Meld is just win more. Before it was explained to me that, like, you need this card to win some of the matchups. This was back when Plaza was a deck. So it's like, to beat all of the Targon matchups and the Demacia matchups and stuff like that, you really need Mind Meld to be able to go, okay, after you attack me, play a bunch of like 0 or 1 mana elusives, go untap, immediately play Mind Meld, and then swing at you for lethal. Because if you don't have that, you're never winning the game because your units are not staying on board for long enough. And that's when it clicked for me of like, okay, so I just got the words, like win condition and win more mixed up.
Yeah. And it also depends on like the context of the deck, right?
Yeah.
Like for example, like FTR is a good one because in the FTR deck, we know it's actually like a win condition, right? You're not just gonna not play it and slam Tryndamere every turn or Trundle every turn. Whereas if I slap an FTR in like, I don't know, like an Ash
Plunder?
Nox,
Like
that's like a bit more win more. Yeah, Plunder's a good one too.
Yeah.
Plunder used to play the one of the Brazilian tech, the one of FTR.
Yeah, I played that.
That's actually something I'm still not sure if that's like a win more card in there, or if that's like just kind of like a meta, like a meta call kind of card.
Yeah, so
that's a tough one to talk about there.
Yeah,
but like you can't just slam FTR in like Ahri Kennen.
Yeah,
like that one's definitely like a win more, right?
Oh, 100%.
That's a lose more.
I think someone needs to try it.
And probably, it might be better than sunk cost actually. I think a good example of something that's win more. Someone brought it up to me recently was, or not recently, is several months ago, was harrowing in Fearsomes. Some people told me like harrowing was win more, and I actually don't agree that it's win more. I thought it was another win condition for things like Draven Ezreal was the main reason at the time, because Draven Ezreal was extremely good, and you won that matchup because they literally cannot deal with harrowing. Like they just don't have enough cards and mana to deal with it. But it sounds like you guys don't, or you guys both have your opinion. So what do you guys think it is?
I agree. I think harrowing is a win condition. You need it to like beat certain matchups. I finally actually thought of a card that 100% was win more. When people played Pharaon and Scion Draven,
Wasn't that tech to win the mirror because it gave you decimates? But I guess at that point, just run decimates anyways, right?
Yeah,
At that point, pivot to Burn Scion or play the Scion list that Mo and I came up with.
I don't think people knew really Burn Scion was a thing. It wasn't really a thing at that time.
I guess.
But no, I think Pharaon was a mirror tech that later people figured out was bad anyways.
Yeah.
That was just a bad Win-More card.
I was going to say, I think it was Win-More before people realized it was Win-More. I think at the time, if you told someone, like, oh, put Pharaon in your deck, no one would have called it Win-More. People would have said, like...
Pharaon wasn't really for, like, the mirror. It was more for, like...
The grindy
matchups.
No, I had people legit tell me, yeah, you should.
No, I know you had people like tell you that, but like the actual reason was like one Pharaon was against the matchups where the matchups where you can't win with just turn 7 Scion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was the mini-morph / aloof.
Like a 1-of was fine, I think.
I'd rather play the aloofs in that matchup because you get the mini-morphs out of their hand. Like I don't know. Anyways, I hate the Pharaon. I think the Pharaon was the win. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's like an actual pure Win-More card.
Judgment is an interesting one because, like, I feel like Win-More is also hard to say when you're in a tournament meta and like bluffing a 1-of something huge like Judgment. Like there is some skill and strategy that goes along with that.
Yeah, Judgment's a really good card actually. I don't know if I would consider that Win-More or if I would consider that
just like very greedy
tournament tech. Yeah, like I don't know if I would consider it just tech or Win-More. What would you guys think if those like words kind of go together?
You know what's Win-More? Herald of the Dragons. Back when people were trying to make dragons work after dragons. That was just greedy and people didn't need it.
I think that was just bad. I don't think that was losing.
It's the 3/4 in dragons that they're playing right now.
That one.
Oh, okay, that card's Win-More.
That is Win-More, right?
Yeah. Okay.
That is the definition of Win-More.
Yeah, that card's pretty Win-More. That card is like, oh, you're already killing things and already getting Fury triggers. Well, you can have an extra +1/+1 for the cost of like 3 mana and 3 deck building slots.
Yeah.
I mean, at least it's a 3/4.
Yeah, it's got a decent body. It's not like a terrible card, but it is the definition of Win-More. You can sub that out for strike spells and be doing just as well, right? Like,
yeah, that's true. You could probably just play more strafing strikes for the same 3 mana, and it'd be 3 spell mana, which is better.
Right.
Yeah, that was pretty good. That was a pretty good one. I don't know if I know of any else. Maybe you could say like atrocities. An old like. No, I think maybe in like Field of Rush or something when you don't need it.
Yeah. One of the cards where it depends on the rest of the deck, right?
Yeah.
I think atrocities are like a necessary evil for a lot of control decks because LORs are the kind of game where you just need a finisher.
Atro,
Shadow Isles, big stuff. It's just Atro.
Atro and Nightfall before, when it was 6 mana. That was kind of Win-More. Because like you kind of needed it, but most of the time you were just using it on like a 3 attack unit or like a 5 attack unit if you were lucky. But it was weird.
Wasn't the thing that Nightfall had like 3 different finishers they play in that slot? And it depended on what the meta was.
Yeah,
Cygnus. Like that,
Cygnus,
or Moonlight Affliction.
I was playing one of Moonlight and one of Atro at the time because I felt you needed both.
Yeah, and the secret was to play none of them.
Yeah, apparently.
It's like how in 2.11 to Zeralia, when people moved to Voices of the Risen, the best ladder deck was actually the one that like just cut that slot entirely, and you just like, played lower the ground to top end. And it turns out for like tournaments that season, you did want to play the Voices version because it beat Dragons, and that was like Dragons versus Zeralia was a key point that you were always going to play that matchup because of what the best lineup was.
Right.
But like for ladder, you just didn't play Voices or like Marshall or whatever. You just cut the top end because you didn't need it. You just smooth, streamlined deck.
I have another one. Specifically, the Absolver in Sivir LeBlanc. That was Win-More because you could just play Might, and a lot of the time you were killing them faster just by playing Might because you can pre-commit it on your Sivir, and then you don't need to. It's less mana. And you don't need to have her leveled before the attack. And the way the turn timers worked out, if you were playing an aggro start with that deck, you wanted Might over the Absolver every single time.
You also Win-More?
I don't know if I would call that Win-More as much as just like I don't know if I would call it Win-More as much as just like bad decision making.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're not necessarily winning more, you're just playing a strictly worse card than Might. But I understand what you're saying, which makes a lot of sense though.
Here's a card that's Win-More. J4's dad, J3. That card only comes down when you already have control of the board.
Also just a bad card.
Yeah, I think that card's also just bad.
Win-More cards are bad. That's like the whole
That's
point, right?
I mean that's
Well,
not really true.
No, that's not the point.
They're
that's
good,
not-
but they're not good enough.
I think that's not really the point of the question wasn't really like are they good? It was like what is the definition of a win more card? And it's just a card that like is something that only helps you if you're ahead. In my opinion, that's what the definition of a win more card is. If
Yeah.
I'm already ahead, like this card only helps me if I'm already ahead.
Okay.
But if I'm ahead, then
Oh.
I don't need it.
Reaver's
so it's
Row,
just-
the 5-drop landmark from Bilgewater.
Bro,
That's
stop.
That's
also
another
just a
one.
bad card.
All right, we're not talking about bad
Stop.
cards.
Stop.
now.
Okay, we're
just
going to the
talking
next
about
topic. I don't know what you guys
Yeah.
are on about.
So-
What the
so
fuck?
last one.
End of the
Is sign in a win more card or not?
Oh,
No.
that's a good question.
It signs necessary in the go hard version.
Did you
it's
say-
fine as top end in smaller versions if you're expecting to play into a lot of mid range control in a tournament? Signs like a fine card.
I think sign in is weird. I think if sign in was, well, I look at it like this. I think the only reason you can consider it a win more card is like, oh, you're buffing an already big board that's probably getting like gobbled up by an Ahri or something. The reason I play sign in is because I hate running out of cards. So like, it's just like a really good draw card for me. That also just so happens to buff my stuff. But I like what that does meet the criteria of it really only helps you if you're ahead. Because if you're not ahead, then like the card is basically just a shitty
Well,
statted 6-mana draw card.
If you are out of cards and you're in a losing position, you top deck sign in, that's great. You play it, you have a body, and you draw 2
Yeah.
cards.
Yeah,
Like, I don't
but
think it's a win more card.
you just get like ran over at that point.
You
Well,
do,
depends, right?
but what if your
normally-
2 cards drawn are like
Yeah,
Well, here's-
palm and
go hard,
also-
go hard, go hard, go hard,
Also-
and the second one transforms into pack, right? Then you're winning.
Yeah.
You're also almost never out of cards in that deck against a matchup where you're getting run over.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess not. But then, and that you probably also just don't want a 6-drop in your hand.
True.
I used to think Yodeling Arms was a big win more card a lot of the time, but it turned out it was just like it was just a good card.
It's just to win you the game.
Yeah,
card.
it's just a win. It's
I
just
was
a
playing
win
that for-
card.
Day one.
I was playing that on ladder today. God, it's so good.
I love Yordles in Arms. It was a
Alright.
great card.
I think end of the day, the best way to describe a win
Shell
card
game.
is just saying the Absolver in any deck that's not Silver Action specifically.
Is
Or
Ruined
Guardian
Rex a
Angel.
win more card?
So
Ruined.
You have to have
card?
drawn this turn. It only helps you when you've already drawn to fulfill the or is that a payoff card? Because you
Yeah,
rewarding
card.
okay, it's definitely not a win more card because you're not ahead most of the time.
after playing it.
Yeah,
you're behind.
Yeah, you're
You're
behind because
when
if
you
you're
play it.
if you spend mana to draw cards, you're behind in tempo. So you're if anything, it's like a catch up. It's a comeback card because you spent the
Yeah.
entire
But
last
it's not
turn.
good enough, so you're still behind.
Yeah, it's just
So
like
it's
it's a lose more card.
another perfect illustrative example, I know we have 50 of these by now, is people were telling me to run the Absolver in what else?
Bro, if you say
Relic.
Absolver
They
one
said-
more fucking time, I swear to God.
It's the perfect example because their logic was, yo, when you have a giant sparring student attacking, you can give it Overwhelm and then you win the game. And then I said to them, if I have a giant sparring student attacking, I've already won the game, and I'm not
Yeah.
wasting 4 mana.
I think that's just people.
Yeah.
I think people are just bad deck builders. And I guess this can be a new topic is, what like should a deck be doing or what are your focus on? Because we do have some of the best deck builders in the game, or at least we have one of them in Shadawx. Being one of the best deck builders in LoR in my opinion. But I think people try and be too cute and go off of like what your goal is with a deck. For instance, what's this? Tom Kentraka, right? I played a lot of Tom Kentraka. I hit rank 2 Tom Kentraka. It was very fun to me because everyone else hated it. And people were trying to play Zenith Blade in that deck, like a 1 or 2 of. Because sometimes you would get the little girl would become like, like a 32, basically, or a 33. And people are saying, oh, well, that's pretty useless if you don't have Zenith Blade. Because you just have this unit that's going to get blocked all the time. And people tried playing it, turns out it wasn't good enough, and then eventually took it out. So when do you decide to stray off the path for deck building into things like, oh, I'm going to tech in the, Absolver for my big sparring student, or I'm going to tech in the Zenith Blade for my, 1-drop that gets really big? Or when do you decide to just strictly stay on the path of like Control F Lurk or Control F, like Tom Kentraka?
Yeah, there's some decks like Lurk, for example, you just kind of auto built, right? Like,
Mhm.
yeah, Lurk's like probably the prime example because you're kind of forced to, or else the deck doesn't really work that well. Let's see. Like Nightfall is also kind of another example.
Mm-hmm.
Like Nightfall, like you have a bit more flexibility, but still, like you can't.
Right.
You actually have to control F Nightfall and add.
Yeah.
Like,
I guess the thing for
most of
Nightfall
them.
would be like, when do you decide to pivot off of the like air quotes aggro? Because I know it's not really an aggro deck, at least in my opinion, but a lot of people still call it Nightfall aggro. And when do you start to tech in things like the like big overwhelm stun card or the big like 7-mana Nightfall dragon to go more into that like, oh, I want mid range and I want the late game stuff with these big stuff, or instead of just being like, nah, fuck that, I'm just gonna go all in on my 4 or less cost units.
Yeah, so like on top of having, I guess, your game plan that you want to go with, you also want to think like, oh, what matchups do I want to aim to beat? Because sure, you can like target aggro or you can target mid range, but that's when you'll decide which of the, I guess, other non-Nightfall cards or which Nightfall cards to include, right? Like, for example, some builds will include Crescent Guardian because, you know, they want to run over, if they're going against aggro and stuff, or Spider aggro, I guess, specifically, like Crescent Guardian just runs over everything, right? And it speeds up your plan. Or if they want to go more into, I guess, mid-range or something, you could even put in Aphelios, right? And then that wouldn't be your traditional Nightfall, but it's still, you know, a Nightfall deck.
Right.
Like, there's different kind of like things you have to consider, right?
Yeah, so when you go into building a deck, because you're more known as like an obscure builder, right? I don't think you build very many tier 1 decks, or at least try to. What is your mentality when you go into building a deck? Is it like, I have these 2 champions and I want to build a deck with them, or is it like I want to build an anti-aggro deck, or like what is the process, I guess, of building one of these decks that we've seen like with the Zoe Nami, right? Like obviously that ended up getting like gutted because it was too broken. And you guys, you know, were kind of the first people to do that. And same with the infinite combo deck. That deck also ended up getting nerfed because people were not having fun with that. How do you, like, what were the thought processes going into building decks like those?
Yeah, so I guess when I want to build a real deck, I do want to like pick a matchup that I'm trying to be good into, and then just build from there. Because the rest of it's kind of like, I guess, second nature to me, is like putting things together and be like, oh, how does a game gonna flow? If I'm targeting, we'll say dragons, for example, and I want to build, I don't know, Silver Auction. Like I'll think, okay, turn 1, they have nothing. Turn 1, I can go. Do I want to develop on turn 1? Do I want to go like turn 1, 2, 3 curve, or do I want to play for like the later game and just have like triple concerted, triple radiant, you know, all that stuff, right?
Right.
So it's just important to like kind of visualize how the matchup's gonna go and how you want it to go. And then that way you can kind of base your deck and your plan around it.
Okay. If you could give like 3 tips to people wanting to build their own decks, whether to like hit masters, if that's their goal to hit masters, or to just, if they want to be the next like Da Vinci of decks, make the next tier 0 deck or whatever, like what would be like 3 tips or a couple tips you would give them?
Okay. If you want to make like tier 0 decks, just find the broken cards and like play them.
Yeah. So just like build around broken cards.
Yeah, build around broken cards.
Okay.
If you want to climb, kind of take a look at the meta and then either play one of those decks or find out what your local meta is. Like, say, for example, if you're in like Diamond and you notice there's like a ton of aggro, you know, play something anti-aggro or tech your decks to like include, I guess, either some cheap pings or lifesteal. And then 3, if you want to build like, I don't know, like random things, yeah, just pick like some obscure card and just try building around it. Like, for example, like Back Alley Barkeep. There's so much you can do with it, right? You can recall it, you can copy it. And then you get free cards, right?
Yeah, so it's kind of just like mess around with it a bit.
Yeah, mess around.
Gotcha.
LP is just a number, don't worry.
True, LP is just a number. True.
I've
got a good one too. That is like a lot of the more expensive cards in the game, like 8 to 10 cost, are really underplayed just because it's such a huge tempo loss. But there's also a lot of great opportunity to make fun decks with those cards. A good example would be eMOEtional making the Glorious Evolution Otterpuss deck that like was doing pretty well on ladder, and that was like a really underplayed card. So a lot of the more expensive cards in LOR don't get the love that they deserve just because of their price point, but there's pretty fun decks to be made with them.
Yeah.
Speaking as someone who tried to make Zaneo work, sometimes you can't do anything.
Yeah, I was gonna say also realize some cards just suck.
Some cards are just like, don't be too disheartened if you can't get your Anakin combo, going
like
off every
Catergan
time.
the Infernal, don't even bother. I'll tell you now.
No, save your time and brain cells.
I wish they would unprint that card.
Oh
Holy.
man, that does lead for some really good like. That leads to some really fun like content though. Like if you're a content creator, these really niche like cards. I know it's a path that a lot of people try to follow. I call it the Mogwai path. That might be a little disrespectful. But I just call it the Mogwai path because he was very well known for making like a bunch of random obscure decks off of random obscure cards and having fun with it, and people watch it. So I know that's something a lot of people follow into. And I just say go for it if that's your plan. Just have fun is the main thing.
Yeah, having fun's like probably the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
Like for example, ladder, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not having fun on ladder, don't force yourself to climb.
Yep, just don't play. I think that's such an overlook. People forget that we just like play a card game. At the end of the day, like it's just a video game. It's not gonna affect your like. It shouldn't affect too much in your actual life or in the broad scheme of things in the world. So just have fun, whether you're just playing ladder, content creation, whatever it is. Just have fun.
Yeah, unless you win 10K.
Yeah, unless you win 10K, then just do whatever the fuck you want, dude.
Yeah.
You can just stream whatever you want, but no. What would you guys give advice to someone for like you guys are mostly content creators, right? I know Sqweeby is, Monte is.
Yeah.
Darkodius streams sometimes.
Darkodius gets more natural viewers than I do when he streams.
Okay.
Shadawx streams sometimes too.
Shadawx has been streamed.
My content is Twitter shit posts.
Twitter shit posts
translates to streams just quite well.
Same.
Yeah. What is your journey been? Like where did you start? Like where are you at, I guess? Like what would you tell people? Like cuz you guys are all starting at LoR, I believe. I don't think you guys had anything going on before LoR. Could be wrong.
I didn't. I played a little bit of Hearthstone, but like I hit Legend, but that's whatever in Hearthstone. I wasn't like trying to compete or anything. The biggest thing, I actually just put out an article about the Wombats where I told a little bit of my story, so you guys can check that out if you want. But the shameless self-plug, that's one thing. You just shamelessly plug yourself when you can. That's what friends are for. Thanks, Mo. The other thing, you just gotta like get in there and give it your all, and like you gotta enjoy what you're doing, and don't just do it because you think it's easy, because it's like really not as easy as people say. And it definitely takes a toll on you sometimes. Like, some days you just don't feel like streaming because chat was really mean the day before, or you just feel like you embarrassed yourself, or this or that or whatever, and it's like, you just gotta deal with it, because like, if this is what you want to do, you gotta do it, and it's cool. And then, yeah, like, as far as growing as like a player in lore, just actually focus on your gameplay and like record yourself, look back at what you did, think about what you did was wrong, what you did was wrong, but not like the individual play. That doesn't really matter. Think about like the game theory behind it. And then ask lots of questions. When you don't understand something, just ask, because this community is super kind and like people will answer your questions. Yeah.
Except Darkodius.
I will answer all of your questions, but I will insult you for asking them. If they're bad questions.
That's true. That's true.
That is true.
I love being. I will randomly go into streamers, like lower tier streamers, and coach them for fun, just because I think it's it's a fun thing to do. Like I help. You guys know who Numbers is? X795.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like in his stream when he was in Plat 1. He was like, "What should I play?" I'm like, "Here's a Poppy Lulu list. I will teach you to play it and get you the diamonds." I just spent an hour coaching him and getting him the diamond because it was fun.
That's all far. That's as far as you could go.
That's as far as you can go.
After that,
I've never done that. I've like coached somebody, a content creator, but it was more because they like asked. So it was this like mutual thing where she was like, "Hey, do you want to like come coach this?" She's like, "Oh, I can like promote you for coaching." She's like also like offered to pay, so it was like an actual coaching session. And all that type of stuff. But I've never like actively gone into someone's chat and been like, do this, or like or even I've never even offered help to somebody just because I don't want it to feel like I'm coming into your stream to like take your viewers or something.
So, well, yeah, you're a content creator. That happens. Like when I do it, people just know me as like. So most of the time when I did it was during the Azir Aurelia season, because I would come in. People would be like, "Oh, who are you?" I'm like, "Check the leaderboard." They check the leaderboard and be like, "Here, I'll teach you how to play Azir Aurelia." They'd be like, "Yo, that's sick." Blah 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 blah. Because I thought it was fun. And then one time I actually, when Nami Zoe was picking up steam, back when we called it Spacefish, before someone changed the name to Starfish, I taught Fresh Lobster how to play it, which was funny. I just came into a stream, so I was like looking at our list, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm one of the guys who came up with this list. Do you want help with it?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah, I also think
I don't
that's
know if you
kind of
remember, but
different,
that deck
though.
was, yeah, obviously. But I don't know if you guys remember, that deck was like not intuitive because of the way the first 3 turns played out.
Yeah, I think that was the hardest part, was learning how the first 3 turns. After that, the deck was almost brain dead. But the first 3 turns, if you were to just pick that deck up and have zero idea how to play it, you'd lose all the time. And you would just feel like, I don't know how to, like, you just like play Zoe on 1 and like Darkodius would like internet slap you or something like that. It was just like, it was the funniest shit.
The worst was when they just like casted
double up on 2.
I was like, that's not why the card's there.
Yeah, just,
well,
that shit was
sometimes.
funny.
But I get my board
they would cast it.
Yeah, it's like, but I get bored
in like mid-range matchups. I'm like,
yeah, that's funny. But I think that's. Oh, go ahead, Sqweeby, sir.
I was gonna say, if you ask any content creator, at least like the ones I've talked to, it all started with the love of LoR the game and just like playing it a bunch ourselves. So if you're just like really passionate about it, just like Shadawx said for his first video, he made a deck. You know, it was unique. Not a lot of people knew how to play it, and then he just recorded some gameplay and talked over it and put it on YouTube. You can do the same thing with turning on a stream and playing your homebrew, or if you're new, you know, what's your goal? Are you in bronze? You want to get to diamond, get to masters? Like, we all have our own story and goals, and if you're sharing your infectious love of the game, you know, through streaming or content creation, people are bound to connect with that as long as you're consistent. So that's I think the number one tip. If you love the game and you're already playing it a bunch, you have nothing to lose by putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
In terms of the original Mo question, I didn't actually answer it. I can't speak from a content creator perspective, but in terms of like coming from someone who's new to the game to someone who's plays at a high level, it's just a matter of being able to make mistakes, learn from them, and not being stubborn about making bad plays, and finding people who you can talk to about the game and learn from. Like Monte already said it, Sqweeby already said it. You just have to find a community, learn from it, but also learn from yourself. Because you're going to play badly to start. And you're even playing badly now. Heck, I play badly all the time.
True.
You just have to accept that you play badly and you can play better.
True. It's all just a process. It's all just a self. What do they call those? Like, you make yourself better, like self-improvement process. That's all like card games are. That's
Digi-evolution.
Yeah, you're just evolving. You're finding ways to evolve yourself. That's something I think is really cool about card games, is you can never like blame anything else. Like, you can't blame your teammates. You can't blame, like, you can blame RNG, but most top players don't really, like, realistically. There are sometimes where you do just get like hard fucked, but and you might say in the moment like, oh, I got fucked by RNG, but if you go back and watch your game, there's almost for sure something you could have done different. And that's something I think is really cool, that when you play card games, you're just like trying to self-improve the entire time. Like, yeah, you want to try and beat the person across from you and outplay them, but a lot of times, like, or I'd say a lot of times, but sometimes when you just, like, even if you try to outplay them or play better than them, it just doesn't matter if you make like one mistake. So he's really just trying to minimize the amount of mistakes you make. And content creation is the same way. You just gotta fucking do it, learn from your mistakes, or learn what goes well for you, learn what does well in general, and, you know, do stuff off of it.
And like, always ask yourself if you're having fun with it. I feel like when you start forcing yourself to do it, that's when it suffers. I mean, you might have to motivate yourself and not be too lazy about it. But if you're really not liking it for, you know, a extended period of time, it might be time to make a change, take a break. Definitely, like, keep checking in with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I just thought about something else, like a little change of topic. It's something that I just thought about because of Darkodius. What do you guys feel about, or how do you feel about backseat gaming, either as the streamer or as the backseat? Do you guys backseat? I know Darkodius does. He just told us he does.
Sqweeby doesn't let people backseat on stream anymore after the Twitter drama.
You don't?
Yeah, I'm all about it. I mean, yeah, at least for me, it's when I'm like playing ladder casually, it's more fun to have a back and forth dialogue with someone,
Mhm.
and like think through the plays together. It helps you catch your mistakes, but like it also like makes for good content when you're like, no, you're an idiot. Why are you doing that play? And then you make the play, and then it's bad, and you lose, and it's
Yeah.
like funny. So it adds like a good dynamic. Whereas I think card games, I mean, they are meant to be like challenging yourself, and when
Mhm.
you're in a competitive tournament environment, you're playing on your own. But uh, it's a dynamic I think that is missing from card games when you have like sort of a call and response and you're not talking to a wall. You get that from chat a little bit, but
Yeah. I guess that's
actually
what
having someone there that you're talking to is it's way more enjoyable. I think for chat too.
Yeah, that's
Well,
what I meant was chat, like backseating you, or you going into someone else's stream and like backseating them in your chat or something like that. Like what
Okay.
Darkodius said, where he like goes into random streamers' chats and starts like telling them how to play. Like that's
I
more
would
what I
always
meant.
ask consent first. I would ask if they were
Yeah.
okay with me backseating.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Obviously,
sure.
if you just show up and start making suggestions or like telling them, no, you should play this instead of this, and there's no like existing relationship, you just come off like a massive asshole.
Yeah, you just gotta like ask like, why did you do that, and then say, here's why I would do that differently.
Mm-hmm.
What do
Oh,
you think about that?
If you phrasing things in the form of question is broken.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I think I don't mind backseaters. I don't mind backseaters because I have an ego, so I just tell myself that like whatever I did was probably better than what they're suggesting. So it doesn't bother me as much. But I know I've watched some people where they'll get actively like pissed at people that try to backseat them. Like I'm not gonna like name anybody, but I was like in this person's chat, someone backseated them because the streamer made a mistake, and the streamer just like went off for like 5 minutes, like flaming his chat about like backseating them, and they use hindsight and all this, that, the other, and I was like, holy shit, dude! I was like, relax, man.
Card games are like prone to like the point is kind of to backseat even if you're not speaking it. Like we're all getting the same amount of information that's on the screen, and
Yeah.
like they're watching because they want to play and learn, and I think it's just kind of natural to have an inclination to backseat when watching these kind of games. Like it doesn't make any sense if you're watching an FPS and you're like, well, why didn't you just aim better and shoot
Just
there?
aim better.
And like,
Yeah.
but like with card games, it makes complete sense because I don't know, you can talk it through in real time, and so I think it's kind of silly to get mad at it.
Yeah, I also think. Oh, go ahead.
The other, sorry. Okay, yeah. Like one problem too is like, I guess it kind of depends on if you know who the backseater is or not. Because like a majority of people, like for example, majority of people are not better than me.
Yeah.
So if they're gonna like try and tell me what to do, personally, I don't mind backseating because it allows me to like evaluate that play to confirm was I right or was I wrong, right? So I don't mind, but I can understand like why some people might be upset because they don't know these people and they're just random chatters, right? They're like trying to tell me what to do.
Yeah, like I couldn't imagine being like I also think I'm not, very bad at the game. But I'm just never under the impression of someone backseats me I like care too much. But I couldn't imagine being someone like, who the fuck is gonna go into a world champion stream and then like backseat them? Who does that? Like who actually thinks that they can go into someone's stream like that and then just like start telling them what to do and telling them like how to play the game?
But Mr. Allen, my play was better.
Yeah, like that blows my mind that I'm like, dude, you might be like a low tier Masters player at best, right? Like no one's heard of you. No, like at the very best you're a low tier Masters player, maybe mid tier.
But
how
I've
are
subbed
you
to
like
you for so long?
Yeah,
I have all your emotes.
I just die laughing when I see these people be like, oh, this fucking streamer is an idiot, should have done my play, like after they have all the like hindsight information and all this, that. I'm just like, dude, what the fuck? I was like, your play has like a 10% chance of being right, but because it was right this one time, you're just gonna like flame the streamer about it, and that shit cracks me up.
Yeah, and that's something too. Like, it's not, I guess, apparent right away to a lot of people. Because okay, for LoR, I found the majority of players are actually like brand new to like card games.
Yeah, because they just come from League of Legends.
Anyone who's had like previous experience has like some sort of basic knowledge.
They're all card game zoomers.
Yeah, and in hindsight is one thing that a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a perfect example of like exactly what we were just talking about. I was playing Scouts the other day, and I had the option to full swing for potentially lethal, but lose to like concerted strike, which was very much within my opponent's range at the time. So I opted to take my scout attack instead. And this chat guy in my chat starts going off. He's like, haha, full swing was lethal, Kappa, you missed lethal, Omega lol. I'm like, okay, but like, if I don't have lethal there anyways because he has the concerted strike, I'm losing my scout attack, and then I'm falling behind on board. And I'm scouts, so I need to stay ahead on board. And then the following turn, again, I had the option to... There's some similar option. And he was like, you missed lethal again, or like, you misplayed that. And I was like, well, not really.
Mm-hmm.
And I even went back into the VOD to look at it, and I pointed out like the exact decision points and why they were correct. And then the guy had the audacity to fucking tell me off afterwards.
Yeah,
I just told him to leave my chat. I don't need you.
That's just a lot of. I feel like that's just like it sounds like a really shitty thing to say, but I feel like that's just such a common mentality around people in just strategy games, not even like specifically card games, but strategy games. Is they'll think like what their play was right, and if their outcome was correct, then there is literally nothing you could tell them that would change their mind on whether or not like they are correct. But those are the same people that will be hard stuck like masters and never top cut a tournament and never like win a seasonals because they're not willing to take feedback and like ask questions and all this other stuff. And that's something that I think is extremely important for people to learn, that if you are aspiring to be a top player or a tournament player or whatever, like you have to admit that you're fucking garbage and figure out like why people are doing stuff, and when you're wrong, even if you're right, figure out like, okay, I might have been more correct than you, but why do you think you were correct? Because that'll be just as important information as why you were right, is figuring out why they were wrong. Like if you say I was right because this that, and you can say, well, I thought they were gonna play around I was playing around concerted strike and judgment. You can say like, oh yeah, that like makes a lot of sense. And if they had that, I wasn't even thinking of those. So then you go into now you run that into your odds for the future bank and stuff like that.
So there's a funny story that's like kind of closely related to this, but sort of the opposite. I remember back during Aphelios Spena, I was playing a lot of Fiora Shen, right? And I watched What Am I, we all know, really, really good player.
Mm-hmm.
I watched him play a Fiora Shen game on ladder. And like, I was pretty good at Fiora Shen at this point. I think it was like 400 LP with it. I felt very comfortable. I top tournament with it. And I disagreed with like 80% of the decisions he made in like the first 6 turns of the game. And he still won.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't think my ideas were wrong either, right? I think it like opened my eyes to like, there's not just a right and wrong play. You can have 2 right plays that might lead to wrong and right plays later. Right?
Did you play card games before this, Darkodius?
Yeah, I played Yu-Gi-Oh!
You played Magic, right?
I played Yu-Gi-Oh! From 2014 to 2017, and then I played Magic after,
right.
And I still play Magic.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
there was a little bit of Hearthstone mixed in there casually and Shadowverse, but I don't really count those.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's a big thing that people mistake a lot of times, because if you come from other games, there usually is just like a correct answer type thing. And if you come from things like MOBAs, fighting games, FPS, there is usually a correct answer. Like the correct answer was to, go through your flowchart if you're playing a fighting game, or the correct answer was to rotate if you saw that they were doing this in an FPS game and stuff like that. But in card games, it's all just percentage based. It's all just whatever is going to be the air quotes like most correct play is going to be whatever statistically gave you the best odds of coming out ahead. And sometimes it's very obvious. Sometimes it's literally 50-50. Like you could say, okay, well, they haven't had either of these cards. They have the exact, 2 copies of each card in their deck, but one card loses to open attack, one card loses to scout attack. And you just have to say like, they're going to I only lose if they top deck one of these, and you just kind of have to pick, right? And sometimes it happens, but most of the time you do just have to take into account, why is everyone doing this thing? What's the highest like probability play to get ahead of things?
Exactly.
And there's multiple ways to do that sometimes.
EU players do the math, and NA players say if they have it, and swing.
Yep.
True. NA just fucking goes in, dude. NA plays like donkeys. I don't know. NA's crazy. Yeah. But I think that's going to be it for the podcast today. The first ever Dev Hour podcast. Yeah, if you're an NA player, type YOLO in the comments. If you're E player, just type in Big Brain. But that's it. Everyone, let us know where they can find you on social medias. Okay. You guys give me your social fucking medias.
I mean, I'm everywhere.
Yeah. We'll just go down order and like.
Just click on my name. It's in the chat.
Well, for the YouTube video too.
Twitch.tv/Shadawx.
Yeah.
Twitter.com.
Twitch.tv/Sqweeby21.
Twitter.com/Darkodius.
Have you guys never given an outro before? I'm so confused.
No, not once.
Oh my fucking
you
god!
You literally said give your socials.
Yeah, and everyone started talking. Okay, Darkodius, where can the people? Darkodius, where can the people find you? Where can the people? I'm not learning how. You guys are fucking trash at being guests. You guys are horrible. I bet if I invited Mastering Runeterra gamers on here, they knew how to give an outro. I bet that.
Yeah, but like they're not
probably.
Yeah, they're fucking too busy practicing their outros than to practice LoR and make top cuts. So.
Exactly.
Darkodius, where can people find you?
Twitch.tv/Darkodius. I stream like once a month maybe. Twitter.com/Darkodius. It's a pretty good Twitter. You should follow it. There's no other social, but you should also read the web serial Worm. It's the best example of superhero fiction in the world.
Okay. Hashtag ad. Monte, where can people find you?
You guys can find me at twitch.tv/Monte_Cristo with an X. And Twitter at MonteCristoLOR. And yeah, that's it.
All right, Shoddy, where can the people find you? Or I guess what are your socials is probably a more correct question to ask.
All right, you can go Twitter at Shadawx or twitch.tv/Shadawx.
Oh, thank you. And last but not least, Sqweebsters, the boy.
Yo. Catch me at twitch.tv/Sqweeby21 and Twitter at Sqweeby. I'm there.
All right, and you guys everyone know where to find me because you're already on my channel, so cool. Now that's gonna be it for the first ever Dev Hour podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below if you did enjoy it. If you want to give us topics for the next Dev Hour, and I'll see you guys next week. All right.